coming on the air with that big manhunt in New York City. Police looking for the guy who shot nearly a dozen people at a subway station in Brooklyn. Our team's hearing about a couple of new leads. We're going to have that in a minute. Plus, what the city's mayor is telling me about what's next and whether he would get on the subway right now. And that new report today showing what you make isn't keeping up with what you pay, with inflation the highest it's been since the first Indiana Jones movie was still in theaters. We're live with how President Biden in Iowa wants to make things a little bit easier on your budget and pointing the finger at Vladimir Putin. Putin, for his part, with no doubt, he says that Russia will win in Ukraine. But it's not like his troops haven't had some problems. We're going to break that down, along with the new but unverified reports about chemical weapons in Mariupol. Plus, a new CDC study out tonight is showing just how tough this pandemic's been for high schoolers. And we're live in China to pull back the curtain on a controversial COVID lockdown, why patience is running thin in Shanghai, and what it's really been like to try to report on it in tonight's Backstory. That's later on in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and right now out of New York City, we're getting some new details about the suspect who started shooting up a subway station in Brooklyn today. 10 people got hurt. And check out some of these pictures. You're about to see him on screen from law enforcement. This is what he left behind in a bag, apparently. Some fireworks, some smoke canisters. Police also recovered his gun at the scene. And as we hit hour 9 now, hour 9 of this manhunt for him, a little bit of a clue. We're told police are on the lookout now for a U-Haul van with Arizona license plates that could be linked to whoever did this. And now you have other big cities tonight. L.A., Boston, Miami. They're stepping up security on their own public transportation. President Biden, just within the last hour, saying that he and the First Lady are praying for the victims who were hurt and by all people affected by the trauma of this attack. With Mayor Adams telling me this afternoon they will find who did this. Is law enforcement getting closer, based on what you know, to tracking down this suspect?
Well, you know, close for me is apprehension. I am not going to be happy until this person is in handcuffs and behind bars. This was a horrific, unprovoked attack on New Yorkers, and we're going to coordinate with our city, state, and federal agencies and bring this person to justice. And this would not go unprosecuted.
So let's lay out what we know about how this happened. Just before 8:30 this morning, when a lot of people were heading to work, kids were heading to school, police say that a suspect in a construction vest and a gas mask set off something like a canister that filled the car with smoke as it got closer to the station. Then he started shooting. Right now, officials are telling us at least 10 people were hit. 16 people in all have been hurt in some way, maybe trying to escape. And if you look at this map, it happened in the Sunset Park neighborhood. It may sound obvious, but we've got to warn you that some of what you're about to see from the scene is disturbing. Some photos and videos are coming in showing people running out of the subway car on the floor, covered in blood, the air starting to fill with smoke. You see that on the left side of your screen in the center now. It's jittery because people are obviously trying to take some of these videos as they're running out of the door now, the smoke billowing out. They're freaked out, right? I mean, they are freaked out. This is people's worst nightmare. That's what's happening. I want to bring in Yasmin Vasugian, who is out there on the scene for us now. Okay, first question for you, Yasmin, is what do we know, right? What are we learning? Pete Williams is standing by, too. But, Yasmin, bring us up to speed about what you're hearing on the scene.
So it's interesting, Hallie, because, you know, on the streets, we don't necessarily know a lot. We had a press conference around noon Eastern time. We are expected to have another press conference from Manhattan around 5 p.m. Eastern time as well to give us yet another update on what's happening, especially when it comes to anything when it comes to the manhunt, right? Details on the manhunt. We don't know necessarily a lot, which is interesting in and of itself, right? You see police officers around. We've had a lot of police presence throughout the day. They're not necessarily on edge here. You would think when you have a mass shooting inside of a subway station and you have 21 people injured during that mass shooting, 10 of which are still in the hospital, right, that people would be on high alert. We're not necessarily seeing that. I'll tell you this. The New York City Police Commissioner is asking folks to stay on high alert. If you see something, say something. They're giving a description of the individual, of the shooter inside the subway car. They said he was wearing a green construction vest, a gray sweatshirt. He had put on a gas mask, as you mentioned, as you were walking through the events that happened on the subway car earlier this morning. They're surveilling footage throughout the city. Of course, there's surveillance footage throughout the city. The camera inside the subway station actually was broken, Hallie. So that is a speed bump that they have in this investigation into finding this suspect. Other than that, Hallie, we don't necessarily know a lot when it comes to this manhunt, but we're hoping to learn a heck of a lot more at 5 p.m. when we're awaiting this new press conference.
Okay, so we're hoping to get more info from police.
And
obviously,
it is 5 p.m. It's now, yeah, it could be any minute now.
Well, I was saying, you know, we're going to show it to you live as this is going down. You talked about some of the questions here, and what's interesting about this is, you know, this wasn't, you're not standing in Times Square, Yasmin. You know what I mean? You're not standing at the edge of Central Park, a site that many tourists would know that has some symbolism around the country, right? And yet, when you talk to experts here, they point out this is a soft target. This is the thing that a lot of law enforcement officials have been concerned about for a long time, that a place like this would end up, you know, very literally in the crossfire.
We've talked a lot about soft targets when it comes to terrorist attacks that have happened throughout the country, lone wolf attacks. And I want to emphasize, during the press conference at noon, they said they don't believe this is a terrorist attack. And when pushed on it, of course, and they said, well, that's still under investigation. But at this moment, they don't necessarily believe it is a terror attack. That being said, this is still very much a soft target. This is a neighborhood with families, right? Predominantly working class families, Hispanic families, Asian American families living in this area, right? These are kids going to school, 8:30 in the morning. We're not necessarily back to full speed post-COVID, but this was a crowded train station, a crowded train car, right? Kids on their way to school, people on their way to work when all this took place. I tell you, Hallie, I spoke to some parents with young kids as they were walking out of school. 4 schools in the neighborhood were all on lockdown throughout the entire day. You and I both have children. Imagine that. Being a parent, getting that phone call and saying, your kid's school's on lockdown until they pick them up from school at the end of the day. The children were told they were having to shelter in place, and I asked a kid, were you scared throughout the day? And they said, yeah, because we had to shelter in place and we didn't know what was happening.
Yeah, that is, you know, that's part of what is so traumatic about this for a lot of people. Yasmin, thank you for being out there. We may see you again, depending on when we hear from police, so let us know. I want to bring in Pete Williams now, who's been tracking all of this with his many sources in the law enforcement world. Pete, it's a little surprising, given how many cameras there are in New York City, that we still don't have a picture of this guy, even as police are saying, hey, they want the public's help. The mayor told me today it's because they want to make sure they get out a photo of the correct person, but this is someone who is apparently wearing a gas mask. The closest camera to the subway car was not working. We don't know why. All of it seems to add to the challenges for police here.
Yes, but the investigation's moving very fast. First of all, you mentioned earlier the fact that the gunman didn't simply flee. He left behind a lot of evidence.
Right.
He left behind his gun. He left behind extra ammunition clips, extra commercial fireworks, the bag that he was carrying them in. So that's all very important information. Now, you mentioned the U-Haul van. Earlier today, police said they were looking for a U-Haul van with Arizona license plate AL31408. That van has now been located in Brooklyn. Police are surrounding it now. They won't try to get into it until people from the bomb squad can come and render it safe. But that's another very important piece of information. Now, all we know from police is that they say it is connected to or associated with this shooting today, presumably because they believe that the gunman was either leaving the scene or arrived to get on the subway in that van. And, of course, you can bet that they are asking the U-Haul people who rented that van. But right now, that's another important piece of information. And every time the suspect leaves something behind, it also raises the possibility that fingerprint evidence can be recovered. So, yes, it's true that we haven't gotten a photo yet. We're told that there is a photo that is circulating within law enforcement circles, but they're not releasing it because they're not sure it's the gunman. They have, they have several theories here, I think. But the fact is this investigation is moving very, very quickly because of all the evidence that's been laying around.
I mean, Pete, you're laying it out here. Can you go? You said something interesting. You said that it appears that as we speak right now, as we are on the air, they have found this U-Haul that they had said initially was connected to this suspect. What do we know? Is somebody in it? They've surrounded it. Do we know anything else about where it is?
Just as I said, they found the U-Haul van. I've not heard that there's anybody in it.
Okay.
But I don't know whether that simply means they can't see anybody through the windshield, whether somebody's in the back of the van. I don't know. I just know that the van has been spotted. It's now been surrounded. The area has been closed off, and the police are waiting for the bomb squad to respond.
Well, obviously, we're keeping an eye on what's happening there. We're going to see if our local affiliate, our local station is over that scene at any moment. Real quick, Pete, we're going to work to get that shut up in a second. This question of terror, you know, Mayor Adams told me he believes this was terror, although drew the distinction between that and like a legal act of terror. As they're looking through these piles of evidence that you have described, what exactly is going to help them figure out how to label this, and why is that significant?
I don't know that it's very significant, frankly. It matters in one sense about who's going to be in charge of the investigation.
Sure.
If it is terrorism, then the FBI takes it over. But the FBI and the New York City Police Department are working so hand in glove on this that I don't know that it would make much of a practical difference. And they won't, until they know who did this and why, they can't say whether it was terrorism or not. It's just that simple. One thing that's sort of notable is that according to the witnesses who were in the train car, in the subway car when the shooting started, the gunman didn't say anything. Now, that doesn't mean a lot, but in some cases, gunmen have, made statements that would indicate a terror attack.
Pete Williams, stay close to that camera, please. We may be coming back to you for the latest as we get it throughout the show here. Thank you, Pete. Appreciate it.
You bet.
We'll keep an eye on what's happening in New York, but there's also this other big story tonight. And the question on a lot of people's minds today, why is everything getting more expensive? And why don't our paychecks line up? Because today's inflation report is showing some eyeball-popping numbers, with President Biden tonight laying out one way he hopes to make things a little less painful. So here's the top line. Okay, the amount of money, the top number right there is the amount of money that Americans make every hour, going up a little bit, 5.6% over the past year. Seems good, right? Except, look at the bottom number. That doesn't line up with costs because the price of everything is up, on average 8.5%. And that gap, that is the pinch. You might be feeling it at places like the grocery store. Eggs, beef, milk, they all cost anywhere from 40 to 60 cents more than March of last year. But nothing is driving inflation more than gas prices. That's a big reason why President Biden, you see him there, is in Iowa today to talk about his new push to lower prices by boosting how much ethanol is made. Ethanol is fuel made from corn. And he's again pointing the finger, blaming inflation on the war in Ukraine.
70% of the increase in prices in March came from Putin's price hike in gasoline. We need to address this challenge with an urgency to demand.
Let's go to NBC's Josh Letterman, who is outside the White House. So the White House, Josh, pointing the finger, President Biden clearly trying to blame Vladimir Putin for this, as we are looking at these inflation numbers going up. But they're trying to also thread this needle because there are strong things to point to when it comes to the economic picture. Unemployment is down, wages are up, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And so the White House wants to call attention to those positive parts of the fact that they've been able to pull off massive job increases, historic since President Biden took office, from, of course, the lows that we were experiencing during the COVID-19 pandemic, and unemployment also at record low levels. But the reality is, if you're an average consumer and you have a job, unemployment may not be what you're most worried about. You're worried about the fact that you're paying more for everyday stuff. And so as a result, you can afford to buy less of the things you were buying before. And so that is what the administration is up against, is they try to take credit for what they've been able to do without seeming like they are out of touch with the real pain that people are feeling at the gas pump, at the grocery checkout, when they pay their rent bills. And so the administration trying with this announcement that President Biden made today to show, look, we're on it. We are doing what we can do to bring down costs, even though many of these broader economic factors are either out of their hands or are monetary policy that the Federal Reserve is dealing with, or just longer-term challenges that it's really hard to deal with as quickly as a lot of Democrats would like them to, given the election only 6 months away.
Josh Letterman outside the White House. Josh, thank you. What's interesting is Josh is talking about the gas price big picture here, is that it's starting to go down a little bit. Right? So you look at the average across the country, it's at $4.10. This inflation report out today is based off that month ago number, right? $4.33. That's part of why it's so cringeworthy, you could call it. But still, for these experts whose job it is to try to make forecasts about the economy, A bit of a chilling picture. Look at this. One federal agency says the average household in this country will spend nearly $3,000 on gas this year, up $455 compared with 2021. Let me bring in CNBC's Jeff Cox, who is joining us now. And Jeff, you know, in your words, as you've described it to me, it's just a perfect storm of a lot of crazy things happening at once. When you look at some of these inflation warnings here, are there any signs you see in this report that perhaps we're going to get a break, let's say over the summer into the fall?
Yeah, good question, Hallie. And I'll just tell you what the knee-jerk reaction that I got from almost everybody I talked to today and almost all of the dozens of economist notes that I've read was that March could be sort of the peak as far as inflation goes. It doesn't mean it's going to fall off anytime very soon, but there are a couple of numbers here today that gave some encouragement. One is we talked yesterday about that core inflation number when you throw out food and energy, because like who needs food and energy? But it only went up 0.3% in March. So that was below expectations. And it may be some indication that maybe some of this like cyclical inflation that we talked about and the president talks about is starting to ease a little bit. So that was good. The other thing is one of the huge factors over the last year that's been driving inflation has been used car prices. And they actually went down almost 4% last month. So that's a big deal. And then there was a third category is commodities, less food and energy, things like timber and certain precious metals, that kind of stuff. That also declined last month. So a little bit of hope of encouragement. But boy, 8.5% inflation is still pretty tough to swallow.
Okay, so give us, without getting into the weeds too much, right, the root cause of people's stress on this is that costs are going up, and what we are all making on average in this country is not keeping pace, right? The fix to that, and forgive me if this sounds like overly, layman's terms here, the fix to that is like increase the amount of money people get in their paychecks, right? I mean, what other solutions are there?
But that becomes a problem in itself because it's what economists call the wage price spiral. And I promise I won't go too deep into that, but just means basically that as prices go up, wages go up to follow the prices. So I just spent $50 to put gas in my car this afternoon. So that's not a great feeling. Now, as far as the workers go, worker wages actually went up. They got a pretty nice bump last month. But when you look at it compared to inflation, it was actually a 0.8% decline in worker wages. So if you extrapolate that out over a year, you're talking about 10% less purchasing power that you have just from what's in your paycheck. And then you start talking about all these other things, all of the costs that you see when you go to the grocery store and how this just spills over into so many different things. It's really tough, and it really makes it hard for the consumer psyche. Consumer sentiment is very low right now, and it makes it harder, I guess, to buy that whole Putin's gas hike argument or it doesn't really help me. It doesn't help me to know that. I just want you to know what you're going to do about it.
So then how would you diagnose the health of our economy right now, right? On the one hand, inflation. On the other hand, unemployment is down. What's the big picture?
I think right now, I mean, the first quarter growth is going to be really weak. We're going to be lucky to see positive digits in GDP for the first quarter. I think for the whole year, we should get away with staying out of recession. At least that's what most economists are saying. But there are so many dynamics at play. It's like, how does the war in Ukraine go? How does just generally sentiment go? I mean, what if one of the real troubling numbers was shelter costs in this report today, up 5% over the last year, and that has been steadily building, and that's actually accounts for about 1/3 of how they compute the consumer price index. So that's a big problem. And if this spiral kind of keeps going, inflation has a way of just feeding on itself, and that's the big danger to the economy around. The fundamentals are good. The job market's great. A lot of good stories for the economy right now, but it's tenuous.
Jeff Cox, thank you so much. Always great to see you. Appreciate that breakdown.
Thanks, Hallie.
Turning now to the war in Ukraine, as we're talking about Vladimir Putin, right? He made a rare public appearance today, saying he has zero doubt that Russia is on track to, in his words, achieve every single one of its goals in Ukraine. But you know what's interesting? He didn't say anything about NATO's expansion, like he did initially when he first decided to invade Ukraine. It's coming as the West is looking at these very serious but still unverified claims that Russia might have gone as far as using chemical weapons in the southern city in Ukraine, Mariupol. We've been talking about it a lot on this show. Listen to what President Biden said today. And listen, if you can tell, there's a word he said today that he hasn't said so far throughout all of this. Listen.
None of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares war and commits genocide in half a world away.
To be clear, that's President Biden appearing to call Vladimir Putin a dictator and describing what's happening as genocide, which so far has not been a word he's used to describe this. He has obviously called Putin a war criminal before, with this claim now coming in of the potential use of chemical weapons. It was denied by Russian-backed separatists, but Ukrainian military commanders said Russian forces used a drone to drop a chemical on a steel plant in Mariupol, which created breathing problems for, as you might imagine, some of the soldiers and people there. And yes, people, right? People, innocent people who are not members of the Ukrainian military, still civilians in Mariupol in the middle of all this. Look at this video here. 9 humanitarian corridors were open today, and right now, Western and Ukrainian officials are saying it flat out, that this potential use of chemical weapons could be the start of a whole new stage of terror. Hallie is joining us now. And Hallie, we heard that from President Biden this afternoon, right? The words dictator, the word genocide, no specific mention of chemical weapons, but that is the focus, it seems, of the West at this moment. And let's be clear, claims that have not yet been verified.
That's right, Hallie. They have no evidence that chemical weapons have been used there. And obviously one of the reasons of that is because nobody can get into Mariupol. No independent organization like the OPCW can get in there, take samples and see what's being used. Now, that claim is coming from the very far right Azov Brigade. They're saying that 3 of their soldiers were injured by some sort of poisonous substance there. And that's the only people we're hearing this from. You know, no even Ukrainian independent organizations can get in there because the Russians have hemmed off that entire area. Aid can't get in there. So it's very difficult to verify, and we're only relying on the accounts of one brigade, the only brigade that's fighting in there. But as you mentioned, it's very interesting. Look, there's a big fight for that steel plant in there, and we've heard reports from the Ukrainians that there's hand-to-hand combat going on in there. So anything could be going on, but until that place is opened up, we're not going to know for sure exactly what's happened.
The UK has said that all options are on the table if, in fact, chemical weapons were used in Mariupol. What does that mean, Hallie? Help us understand that, because we've already seen a level of intervention from the West as far as sanctions, for example, military support to Ukraine. But this could open up kind of a new frontier.
Well, look, it's got to be weighing very heavily on the minds of the UK and, quite frankly, on all the other NATO members if chemical weapons are used. Look, so far they've been very reluctant to get involved in this war beyond weapons, beyond ammunition. But if there was some sort of massive chemical attack or some other unconventional use of weapons and civilians were injured or killed in large numbers, that may rethink the way that they're going to approach this war. But, Hallie, we've seen it before. We've seen it in Syria. The West has drawn red lines. Assad used chemical weapons, and he got away with it. And that's got to be on Vladimir Putin's calculation on how he approaches this war here.
Hallie live for us there in Lviv, Ukraine. Hallie, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Back now to what's happening here at home. 100 million of us under the threat of really bad storms, potentially even tornadoes through tomorrow. And if it feels like deja vu, I get it, right? This is the 4th week in a row now that we've come on the air talking about the potential for stuff like twisters, right? Look at Arkansas. Heavy rain, baseball-sized hail, really windy conditions, and maybe as many as 4 tornadoes touching down there. The system could start up again tonight as it spreads from southern Minnesota down to the Gulf Coast. Al Roker is tracking all of this for us. Okay, Al, lay it out. You previewed this last week. You said you and I are going to talk last week, and we're going to talk about week number 4 of this really scary stuff. What can we expect?
Yeah, believe me, Hallie, I wish I had been wrong, but unfortunately, we're not. We already have tornado watches up around Nebraska, Iowa, parts of Minnesota, also down into Texas. Severe thunderstorm watches as well starting to fire up, and we're going to be watching this very closely. So right now, 45 million people at risk from Waterloo, Iowa, all the way to Houston, Austin, Dallas, Wichita. Strong storms. Very large hail in central and western Iowa. Hail damage possible. Also tornadoes, EF2s or stronger from Omaha, Waterloo, Des Moines, St. Joe's. And then for tomorrow, 56 million people at risk. And especially in this area, this is a moderate risk of severe weather. And we are looking at several tornadoes touching down. And in fact, we're talking hail, significant wind gusts. These storms could organize into a squall line and spread widespread thunderstorm damage. But also look at the area where we could be looking at EF2 tornadoes or stronger. Indianapolis, Evansville, Memphis, Tupelo, Nashville, just to the east of this. Jackson and Shreveport. And these are going to be tornadoes that could be happening at night. And those, as you know, twice as deadly. Also hailer from Poplar Bluff, Memphis, Greenville, all the way down to Alexandria. Now, this system pushes to the east. Blizzard conditions behind the backside of this system.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about that in a second, Hallie. Violent storms from Chicago all the way down to Houston. That severe threat shifts into the Mississippi River Valley. Rainfall rates and areas of flooding possible, Hallie. We're talking about from New Orleans all the way on up into central Indiana. That includes Nashville, St. Louis, Jackson, and New Orleans.
The blizzard you mentioned, Al, that's coming in right here, too.
That's right. Look at this. We've got winter weather advisory, storm warnings, and blizzard warnings stretching from northern Minnesota all the way down into the Rockies. And you can see some places in Montana have already picked up 24 inches of snow. Snowfall totals up to 3 feet in the northern plains. So winter isn't quite done yet with a good swath of the country, Hallie.
Al Roker, good to see you. Thank you so much. We'll look for more from you tomorrow morning on Today. Appreciate it. Right before we came on the air tonight, we found out that the 2 men arrested by the FBI last week for allegedly pretending to be federal agents are going to be released on bail while they wait for their trial. But the judge actually agreed to hold his ruling until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, so both men have at least one more night behind bars, giving the prosecution time to decide if they want to appeal. These are the 2 men we've been telling you about, Aryan Tarzadeh and Haider Ali, accused of providing Secret Service members with rent-free apartments, iPhones, surveillance systems, a drone, by convincing agents they were one of them. The judge has said this case doesn't meet any of the standards for denying bail and that pretending to be a police officer is not a violent crime. We expect more at another hearing set for the end of this month. Coming up, did you hear about this? Congress reportedly telling the FTC that the NFL's Washington football team seems to have broken some financial laws and maybe hurt season ticket holders. We're going to get into those details. Plus, when should kids get screened for anxiety or depression? We've got the new age recommendations from the government when we come back. Starting to screen kids for anxiety and depression may be useful as young as the age of 12 years old. That's the recommendation from this government task force. It typically focuses on stuff like diabetes and cancer, but now it's focusing on this issue, mental health in kids. But despite the CDC study that's out now showing mental health is more and more a problem for children, the group says it can't find enough evidence to support screening for suicidal thoughts for kids of any age. Meg Terrell is joining us now with the details. And really, it feels like one of the big headlines coming out of this, Meg, as we really, as you know, talk about mental health in kids a lot, is that high schoolers are having a really tough time in this pandemic. 1 in 3 of them, according to this new study, reported poor mental health, as this COVID outbreak was spreading across the country. What are we learning? What are we learning from a solution-oriented perspective on how to help these kids and more on why it's happening?
Yeah, well, with that CDC study, we saw that this problem, which has been getting worse for years, has gotten even worse during the pandemic. And some of the solutions that the CDC researchers found potentially is a feeling of connectedness. They were really studying how connected kids felt to people in their schools or potentially in their communities. And they found that kids who felt more connected to people generally had lower levels of these poor mental health. And so that is something that potentially translates over here to this new recommendation for increased screening, because if you can catch more of these potential diagnoses, you can go through the evaluations, connect kids to the people that they need to be connected to potentially start to get care. And so all of this is kind of connected, just feeling more connected to people in your community, to getting the help that you need. That is the important part of this.
And one of the things with staying connected and getting the help we need, right, and getting the help that kids need is looking early to support screening for suicidal thoughts in kids. But this task force says there's just not enough evidence to back that up right now. Can you help us understand that?
Yeah, so essentially, these are recommendations for kids who have no signs of symptoms of depression or anxiety or suicidal thoughts at all. If they have signs of those, then screening and evaluation would be recommended. But essentially what the panel said is right now there isn't good evidence either way to either say, yes, we should do that screening, or no, we shouldn't. And so they're just saying more research is needed to be able to make an informed recommendation for screening there.
Meg Terrell, thank you. And we should note, if you need help, if you are having suicidal thoughts or somebody that you know, there is a hotline Available at all times for you, 1-800-273-8255. Meg, thank you. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, at least 25 people have been killed after this tropical storm hit the eastern and southern coast of the Philippines. Landslides, really bad floods. You've got rescuers still digging for survivors. Officials say the hope is that the storm will get weaker and then move out back to sea. Number 2, have you heard the news about Gilbert Gottfried? He died today. His family sharing the news online, saying it was after a battle with a long illness. You probably recognize him. He did stand-up comedy for a long time. He was the star of movies like Problem Child and The Aristocrats. He was 67 years old. Number 3, 3 former Minneapolis police officers have rejected a plea deal connected to George Floyd's death. You see them here. This happened at a hearing over an upcoming trial where the 3 are charged with aiding and abetting in Floyd's murder. Prosecutors didn't specify, they didn't lay out what exactly was in this plea deal. The ex-cops were convicted in February for violating Floyd's civil rights. Number 4, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, he's going to have to pay up for throwing parties that broke his own COVID lockdown rules. Police in the UK say they're fining him now for his role in what has been dubbed the Partygate scandal. We don't know how much the fine is for, but he does have like a month to pay it, 28 days. Number 5, thousands of Etsy sellers are going on strike this week because of a company policy change. Etsy hiked up the transaction fee for sellers yesterday. So now if you go onto Etsy, something like 5,000 shops are closed. Owners are asking customers not to buy anything from Etsy for the rest of the week to try to send a message. To some news here out of Washington on a couple of levels, because this new letter from Congress says the Washington Commanders team owner, the Washington football team owner, Dan Snyder, may have been part of a pattern of financial misconduct that broke the law over several years. You basically have Congress accusing Dan Snyder of breaking the law. One of the allegations that the team and Snyder withheld as much as $5 million in refundable deposits from season ticket holders. Another allegation that there were 2 sets of books for finances, one for the NFL and one for Snyder and his inner circle. The accusations coming from a former sales VP who worked for the team for over 20 years. An excerpt from this letter even says Friedman claims some executives used the term juice to describe the money they got through those practices. It's all part of the House Oversight's Committee of Investigation into misconduct on the team, including sexual harassment claims. You see Sahil Kapoor, he's joining us now. So to be clear, we haven't yet heard from the Commanders responding to this letter yet, right? But there's a lot in here. Talk us through it.
That's right, Hallie. A remarkable 20-page letter written by the House Oversight Chair, Carolyn Maloney, and a subcommittee chair, Raja Krishnamurthy, that details these allegations. They say, quote, the Commanders may have cheated the team's fans and the NFL. And as you mentioned, this is all largely, I should say, based on testimony from a man named Jason Friedman, who worked for the organization for 24 years, rose to be the sales executive of the Commanders. He said once the government approached him, he was not going to lie to protect Dan Snyder anymore. Those are his words. Now, the 2 specific categories here are that one is refundable security deposit for season ticket holders that were not refunded, as much as $5 million there. There were also there's also revenue sharing money that was concealed or underreported in terms of ticket sales that should have been shared with the NFL that wasn't. So a number of tentacles here. And the committee, as part of this letter, as part of their statement, they had quotes, they had financial tables, they had lease agreements. They appear to have the goods. And I should say the Commanders, to the best of our knowledge, have not responded to this particular letter. But several weeks ago, when insinuations of this sort came up, they did deny allegations of financial impropriety.
The finger is pointed pretty clearly at Dan Snyder, the owner, right, in this letter. It's very specific about his involvement in, to put it in plain English, what you're talking about, not paying season ticket holders, the allegation is what they were owed, nor the NFL what it was owed.
It certainly is, Hallie, and this is a team under this particular owner that cannot seem to escape controversy. There was a years-long row over the previous name of this team that ultimately got changed. There is an ongoing investigation happening in Congress in terms of a hostile work environment after Snyder was accused by some of his former employees of sexual harassment. The NFL has also indicated that it is looking into that. And now we have these rather explosive allegations of financial misconduct and impropriety. And, you know, from a PR standpoint, this is obviously very bad for the organization because sports franchises thrive on the support and the dedication of its fans. And Dan Snyder was a trending topic on Twitter today. If you clicked over to it, you could read some tweets from some very angry fans as a result of all this.
Trending on Twitter is oftentimes a place that nobody really wants to be. Sahil Kapoor, thank you very much. We're going to keep an eye on this because, as you say, there's a lot of tentacles here. There's a lot of pieces to this congressional investigation into Washington's team. Appreciate it, Sahil. Coming up, you might have seen videos of this on social media, this COVID lockdown in Shanghai. It's pretty controversial, but what is it really like to try to report on it? We're going to pull back the curtain and go behind the scenes with Janice Mackey-Frayer live from China, coming up in our backstory in a minute. Plus, New York's governor says she's accepted the resignation of her lieutenant governor just within the last 30 minutes or so. Why he had to offer to step down in the first place, coming up later in the local. The South Dakota House impeached the state's attorney general today, nearly 2 years after he hit and killed somebody on the highway. We've got more on that in the local in a minute. But first, it's time to get the backstory, our behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits into our bigger picture. And tonight, you have the State Department ordering some American diplomats and their families to get out of Shanghai because of a COVID outbreak, and some concerns about the way that China is dealing with it. It's a big change from last week when the State Department asked non-emergency employees to leave voluntarily of their own accord. China's biggest city has been on lockdown for weeks, and it's a pretty controversial lockdown. You've got people there complaining that they don't have food, they don't have health care, the medical care that they need. Some parents say they've actually even been separated from their kids. And then you have social media videos like the ones you're starting to see here on screen, showing protests over food, medicine, a supermarket ransacked. Even at night, some people heard crying out for help from their windows. Listen. Our Janice Mackey-Frayer is joining us now live from Beijing. So, Janice, thank you for being with us for the backstory. You know our segment where we go a little bit behind the scenes on what it is like to actually report out a story like this. So we've explained what's happening. You haven't been able to get to Shanghai in the last several weeks, right, because of this lockdown?
We kind of can't go anywhere, Hallie. While there isn't a full-on lockdown in a city like Beijing, there are travel restrictions that we have to abide by. So it's not impossible to travel within China, but it certainly is difficult. Getting on a plane requires having a COVID test. When you get to a place, you have to hope that there aren't cases that crop up when you're there, because you can be forced to quarantine on arrival somewhere, or be forced to quarantine when you come back to Beijing. So getting to a place like Shanghai has been extremely difficult, because there it's a full-on lockdown.
Right.
Nobody is moving. The city of 26 million people appears virtually paralyzed, and we've seen the difficulties that the city is encountering playing out over social media, where in what is China's most, arguably most cosmopolitan city, and one that's very politically important, even the very rich are struggling to get food. We see videos of people pleading to get medical assistance for relatives who have other health conditions who can't get access to hospitals because of COVID restrictions. There are problems with the logistics around food. And all of this is playing out and causing a lot of distress, because there's a ripple effect that's been happening across China with other major cities seeing that a lockdown could happen in China's financial heart, and realizing that a lockdown could happen anywhere. So over the past month, there have been lockdowns in the city of Shenzhen in the south, in the province of Jilin in the north. The entire province is locked down. People haven't been able to travel between cities, farmers not able to get to their fields. All of this having an impact on the economy too. And it is stoking this sense that a lockdown could happen anywhere in China as it continues to push ahead with this very strict zero COVID policy.
I know that you know the value, right, of being in the field as a reporter, of getting, literally boots on the ground and being where the action is happening. Is this a function of you're looking at social media videos like we all are? Are you calling, contacts who live in Shanghai, the people that you made, that you've met in your many years living in China? Like, how are you doing the sort of shoe leather work of the reporting on that front?
It's difficult. I mean, social media has been an incredibly important mirror to reflect the difficulties that people are having, the impact that this lockdown is having on daily life here. And of course, it translates into personal lives as well. We're calling friends, we're keeping in touch with people we've interviewed before to find out how they're coping with things, and also preparing in our own ways, you know, stockpiling a little extra tuna and pasta in case, you know, a lockdown comes here. I think what's important, Hallie, is that up until now, this zero COVID playbook, which is the one that China has been using since the beginning of the pandemic, the hard lockdowns, the mass quarantines, the mass testing, the QR codes to track people's health data. Until now, there has been fairly broad public support for this policy because it has been effective in keeping the virus largely contained here. And a vast majority of, 1.4 billion people here have been able to have somewhat normal lives over the past couple of years. What Shanghai has done it shifted this because it's showing that a lockdown can happen anywhere. It can seriously impact your life. And also that there could be a shift in public support for this zero COVID strategy. China's government is saying they're not relenting. They're tweaking it in parts. They're going to allow what they call appropriate activities in Shanghai, things like going to the grocery store in areas where there haven't been new cases over the past 14 days. But it isn't clear exactly when that's going to be coming to most people, with each day bringing a new record number of cases, 23,000 cases today alone. There isn't a sense on when this lockdown is going to end in Shanghai, when the end will be in sight, and also what impact it's going to have on broader public support here in China as other cities are nervously watching.
Really quickly, Janice, has there been anything that's surprised you about what we've seen unfold in Shanghai over these last few weeks?
It's a good question because, I mean, some things have been startling, for sure. I think what it is, I've also taken note of a lot of the comments on social media where people marvel at what I'll say we, have become accustomed to here in living with this zero COVID strategy.
Versus the U.S.,
My son had to take a blanket to school. Well, versus the U.S., versus a lot of places. My son had to take a blanket to school in case they have mass testing there and they need to stay overnight.
Wow.
And so it's small things like that have been woven into daily lives here as just, par for the course. And so I think, as people watch these videos on social media of how it's playing out in Shanghai, they're being reminded in a very visceral way that COVID is not over and that this strategy here is not relenting.
Janice Mackey-Frere, great as always to see you. Thank you so much for that look at what it's like from your end there in China. I appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, the opening arguments today in that $50 million lawsuit from Johnny Depp against his ex-wife, Amber Heard. Why her lawyers are predicting this trial is probably going to become a 6-week mudslinging soap opera. That's after the break. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. From our Midwest Bureau, the South Dakota House has impeached the state attorney general today, Jason Ravensborg, who killed a pedestrian in a car crash in 2020 and initially told officials he thought he hit a deer or some other kind of animal. The Republican is the first official in South Dakota history to be impeached. He still faces a Senate trial. From our Northeast Bureau, New York Governor Kathy Hochul says her lieutenant governor is resigning after we found out today he's going to face federal bribery and fraud charges. Brian Benjamin appeared in court after surrendering to officials. Prosecutors say he was part of a scheme to use state money for his personal political campaigns. And from our West Coast Bureau, PG&E is going to pay $55 million to avoid criminal charges in its role in 2 California fires. The utility company was sued over old power lines that sparked the Dixie and Kincaid wildfires. PG&E didn't admit any wrongdoing in this settlement, but the company's been blamed for more than 30 wildfires since 2017. Explosive new allegations of abuse made today during opening statements in Johnny Depp's defamation trial against his ex-wife, Amber Heard. Heard's lawyers say Depp sexually assaulted the actress more than once and that now the world will see the, quote, in their words, the real Johnny Depp. On the other side, Depp's lawyers say none of it ever happened. And they say that Heard actually physically abused him when they were together. Depp is suing his ex for $50 million, saying she falsely portrayed him as a domestic abuser when she wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post in 2018. The piece came out after their divorce and focused on Heard being a domestic abuse survivor. It didn't mention Depp by name, but his lawyers said today it was clear it was about him and tainted his reputation. Heard's attorneys say this whole case is about the First Amendment and whether her words were protected free speech.
Make no mistake, this man's poor choices have brought him to this courtroom. His own bad behavior.
The evidence will show that Ms. Heard's false allegations had a significant impact on Mr. Depp's family and his ability to work in the profession he loved.
Steve Patterson is following this trial for us. And Steve, we heard Heard's attorneys say we should be ready for a 6-week mudslinging soap opera. Talk about, though, you know, there are celebrities involved in this. There's a lot of attention on this trial, very serious allegations, and a spotlight on domestic abuse.
Yeah, I don't like mudslinging because I think it implies a small amount of mud. This is going to be like mud wrestling. This is character blood sport that we're already seeing. Both sides planning to use character witnesses to tear down their ex-spouses with detailed graphic accounts of a marriage that was clearly chaotic with the allegations of abuse on both sides. I think we should say trigger warning for anybody watching because this got ugly from minute one. Heard's team alleges Depp punched her, kicked her when she was down, that he would drag her, pull her by the hair, pulling out chunks, and that, yes, there were instances of sexual assault. Depp's team says it was Heard that was the monster, that she would become enraged and physically attack Depp to the point that he would often have to lock himself in their own bathroom, or when they went on trips that he would book his own hotel room because she would launch into these violent tirades. And Hallie, this is just day one of a trial that, as you mentioned, could last upwards of 6 weeks. Both sides, they say they have hard evidence, so we can only expect more of this, Hallie.
Talk about these strategies, I think, from each of these legal teams over the next few weeks, how Depp's attorneys versus Heard's attorneys are going to try to make their case.
Yeah, well, let's start with Heard, because for all the drama and character work that is inevitably part of her defense, I actually think the central argument will focus more on tearing down the premise of the suit itself. And you alluded to this, that she's set out to somehow destroy Depp's reputation by writing that 2018 op-ed about domestic violence. Remember, Heard doesn't have to convince the jury that Depp is this abusive monster. All she has to do is convince them that she wasn't trying to libel or defame Depp. For instance, we've already heard the attorney say that she never mentioned Depp by name in that opinion piece, which is true, and also stuff you wouldn't expect, like describing how Disney was already planning to drop Depp from the Pirates franchise before that opinion piece ever came out. Depp, on the other hand, has to prove actual malice, right? He has to convince the jury that not only is Heard lying about his abuse, but that she was the abuser. Not only was her abuse physical, but that she was a manipulator who, after their divorce, set out on this campaign to destroy Johnny Depp's reputation. Proving that is his only win condition, really, which is why experts are saying his road is a lot longer than her road.
And this is already getting a lot of, a lot of eyeballs, if you will. We expect some pretty famous people to be witnesses here. Elon Musk, I think James Franco, right? And I understand there was like a kind of not a fight, but like a push to get in the courtroom from just like spectators.
Well, yeah, and the spectator, it's already a circus. The horse already got its stable on this one, right? If you were to go to that courthouse now, you'd find fans who flew in from California, fans who flew in from Houston, fans who flew out from Australia just to stand outside. The judge already saying that, there's no autographs, no pictures, none of that from either side, or he'll hold people in contempt of court to try to avoid this from getting any worse. But when you have Elon Musk, James Franco as possible witnesses, this could easily get out of hand, Hallie.
Steve Patterson, live for us covering this trial. Steve, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Coming up here on the show, the WNBA says it's trying everything to bring Brittany Griner home. She is still detained in Russia. She's been there for weeks now. So why aren't we hearing more about the basketball star's case? Vaughn Hilliard's going to break it down for us when we get back. We are hearing now from the WNBA commissioner for the first time since Brittany Griner, the WNBA superstar, was detained in Russia weeks ago. Her case, of course, the shadow kind of hanging over the WNBA draft last night. She's the basketball player who was arrested on charges of smuggling cannabis oil into Russia earlier this year and whose detention is expected to last until mid-May. You may be thinking, well, wait a second. I haven't heard a ton about Griner's case since her arrest. That may be because U.S. officials and the WNBA want to keep a low profile for very strategic reasons for her safety. But new questions about the timing of her arrest are starting to emerge. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard takes a look.
The experience very special.
At last night's WNBA draft, a showcase of future stars. The commissioner, though, opened the night noting the continued detention of its current star, Brittany Griner, held by authorities in Russia.
Please know that getting her home safely continues to be our top priority.
Griner, imprisoned by the Russian government now for nearly 2 months. Russian officials alleging she had vape cartridges containing cannabis oil in her luggage at a Moscow airport, an offense the government says they could use to justify her jailing for up to 10 years.
State-sponsored hostage-taking has really picked up steam in recent years.
Gisu Nia is a human rights lawyer at the Atlantic Council.
The idea is really to influence U.S. foreign policy or to gain some kind of leverage on an issue that that country cares about. So Russia engages in this practice, Iran, China, Venezuela, Cuba.
The State Department confirming today it last had access to Brittany Griner 3 weeks ago. At the time, the U.S. provided little information about her well-being or the conditions of her detainment.
We are in frequent contact with her legal team, with her broader network.
The State Department saying it has urged Russia to make sure its access be, quote, regular and be consistent. The White House mostly quiet about its diplomatic efforts to bring Griner home as tensions with Russia intensify daily as it continues its deadly military invasion of Ukraine.
It is not typically constructive to talk a great deal about these cases of individuals who are detained. It can historically impact our ability to bring them home. And that, of course, is our objective.
The Phoenix Mercury season is set to begin on May 6th, but a Russian court has already extended her detention through May 19th. So Russia says its investigators can continue their work.
Often these individuals are held for concessions, removal of targeted sanctions, for instance, but this is how these cases are used for political leverage.
Vaughn is joining us now. So Vaughn, it's not just that we're hearing from the WNBA commissioner for the first time now, right? It's that this is shining a spotlight, what's happened to Brittany Griner, on other Americans detained in Russia. Paul Whelan, Trevor Reed.
Right. These are the three individuals, 3 Americans that are presently held in Russia here. And, you know, when we're talking about Brittany Griner, you know, to a certain respect, you know, her family, those close to her, kept a relatively low profile here in these first weeks for fear of raising the stakes of her detention here. But as these weeks have gone on since the invasion of Ukraine, the geopolitical turmoil, which the United States finds itself in the front and center of, has now raised the stakes of Brittany Griner's detention here. And yes, well, in Russia, Hallie, there are more stringent punishments for an allegation for being found that you have cannabis oil on you. At the same time, Russia has not provided any evidence that, in fact, she did. And we are now 2 months into her detention, and they have already extended it an extra month, while also allowing the U.S. to only engage with her one time at this point.
Vaughn Hilliard bringing us that story. Vaughn, thank you for shining a light on that. We appreciate it. Glad to see you. Glad to see all of you, actually, on this very busy afternoon, evening. As always, it's a wrap for us, but we're going to have more for you here tomorrow. Same time, same place. Coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.